Former Prime Minister Mr. Odinga, Chair of the Council of Governors Mr. Peter Munya, his Deputy Mr. Salim Muraya, all governors present, senators, members of the national government, ladies and gentlemen, let me say by all protocols observed, good morning and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mine is a difficult name, so everybody struggles with it. It's actually Siddharth Chatterjee, but Sid is easier to remember. But normally when I have my first Tusker, I mispronounce it myself. And on the second one, I forget it. So, ladies and gentlemen, September 2015 was a landmark day, a historic day. It led to the world coming together to sign the Sustainable Development Goals. The goals were about people, planet, and prosperity, which also seeks to strengthen universal peace and larger freedoms. The new agenda to be implemented is about collaborative partnerships. That vision, articulated in the 2030 Agenda for a better world, for a world free of poverty, for the want, and which will be achieved in the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I'm sure the goals have been put up on the slide over here, so I will not repeat the goals one by one. But the broadened agenda, unlike the MDGs or the Millennium Development Goals, presents significant opportunities, yet challenges to the world. In the words of the UNFPA Administrator, Helen Clark, she says, "Ours is the last generation which can head off the worst effects of climate change and the first generation with the wealth and the knowledge to eradicate poverty." Ladies and gentlemen, to do that, we will need fearless leadership at all levels. Kenya has the advantage of having a very progressive constitution, a vibrant civil society, a strong constitutional commissions. For example, the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. The SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals, provides an opportunity to renew the government commitment to promote and advance human rights. The new agenda strives to leave no one behind and puts the imperative of equality, non-discrimination, the equality of genders right at the heart of this. This requires strong commitment to disaggregation of data, including collection, production, analysis, and dissemination of data. What are the actions, therefore, required in order to do that at the country level? The mainstreaming of these development agendas into the regional, national visions, plans and policies and programs is an important step that has set the tone for the achievement of the Agenda 2030. In this regard, the following actions need to be taken. Firstly, raising awareness at the regional, country and subnational level on the global and continental development agendas. Secondly, defining national development strategies that would respond to the new development frameworks. Thirdly, aligning national development plans and Agenda 2030 through target setting. Fourthly, setting baselines and assessing data requirements for information, decision-making and tracking progress on the Sustainable Development Goal implementation. Now, all these elements will require enhanced capacities at the national and county level, especially in the Ministry of Devolution and Planning, the National Treasury, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the county governments, civil society organizations, and a very important partner in this game will be the private sector. There are incredible opportunities and challenges that Kenya faces. President Kenyatta recently said that young people are Kenya's hope and future, and at no time will he allow this destiny to be derailed. I'm going to go slightly off script, ladies and gentlemen, now, because I think this is important to dwell upon. Kenya has the largest youth population it has ever had in its history and will ever have in the future. Over 70% of Kenya's population is less than 30 years old. By 2020, we expect the average age of a Kenyan to be approximately 28. The story of Africa is the same. Let me roll back a bit. In 1956, Kenya's population was the same as Sweden, 7 million. Today, the population of Sweden is 9.8 million. The population of Kenya is 42.5 million. What does this mean for us as a nation state with the rising youth bulge, which is capable of making Kenya one of the most progressive countries? In fact, with USAID and the Director General of NCPD, there was an exercise which was undertaken. And if we get proper employment for young people, if we can increase contraceptive prevalence rates to about 80%, Kenya's economy will grow 12 times. That is the prediction, and these are based on proper economic simulation models. Now, the youth can be critical agents of change, ladies and gentlemen, for positive socio-economic change if appropriate investments can be made to unleash their power, to innovate and become productive citizens. Poor health and socio-economic investments in young people determine lifelong and general development contributions and outcomes. And youth, if not properly given the skills, if not properly educated, can also then become a demographic disaster. It will increase social tensions. There will be less jobs available. There will be social unrest. Let me draw you most recently to what happened in India, my country. New Delhi shut down for close to a week because at a neighboring state, or a county as you would term it here, young people went on a big strike. The strike was about unemployment. That strike was a wake-up call for the national government as well as the state government. It virtually brought the capital of Delhi to a standstill. Imagine something like that happens along one of the counties along the Mombasa road. 3,000 Kenyans are born every day. 1 million every year. 1 million join the workforce every year. But there are close to 200 to 300,000 jobs available. The rate of unemployment amongst young people is humongous. Science has a clear message, ladies and gentlemen, for Kenya, that the opportunity to harness the demographic dividend, just like the Asian tigers did, is now enormous, real, and imminent. And let me look at the Asian tigers quickly. Countries such as Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, South Korea exponentially jumped their economy in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s. It's a window of about 29 to 30 years. What did they do? They generated mass-scale employment in every sector. And please, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget the employment that is needed to build roads, to build infrastructure, the fundis that we need in this country in order to get the system, the economic wheels of this country moving. There are therefore 4 critical areas of investment that the government of Kenya needs to make. First and foremost, education and skills, the right skill sets. One of the biggest challenges right now young people in Kenya are facing is the adequacy of skill sets. Skills that are needed to build this country, to push the economy, to have a Marshall Plan of sorts. Just the way Europe was transformed after the Second World War, and just the way the Asian tigers transformed their economies. The second is empowerment. Now here is a surprising statistic. For every 100 Kenyan that is employed, there are 81 dependents. Now what does this do to the microeconomic picture? What does this do to the household income? And every time there's a health shock or a catastrophic emergency, that household is pushed deeper into poverty. Therefore, the girls are married off early, they are cut, increase in gender-based violence starts to happen, and a key participant in that Kenya's economic growth is being left out, and that's half of those 81. Now imagine the figure, if that half of the 81 were added to the 100 and it became 140 employed with 40 dependents, it changes the economic picture entirely. This is what we need to do. We need to make sure that women are empowered, they have completed their education and got the right skills. They are not cut and married off at an early stage only to be traded as commodities for cows. They need to join the workforce and therefore need to plan their families. So there must be a plan in place where girls have complete access to knowledge on planning their families. The third, ladies and gentlemen, is employment. We need a pump priming of the economy. We need to make sure that there is a blended financing mechanism where Kenya opens up its doors with one-stop shop plans where foreign direct investment becomes easier. Why can't places in Mandera and Wajir really become the food banks of the future? Why is it that Israel can do it and nobody else seems to be able to toy that line? Kenya potentially can be the food basket of the world. Agriculture, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be the biggest employer in Kenya. And we need to find a way to make sure that that happens. Second is infrastructure, the roads that you need, the buildings that you need, the hospitals that you need. All this would generate employment. Every sphere of employment generation needs to be looked at. So I would strongly urge the county governments, governors, and the national leadership to really look at a Marshall Plan, because this window of the demographic dividend of having a large youth bulge will end by around 2050. But by 2050, Kenya will have a population of 85 million, as per the current total fertility rates. The total fertility rate at the national level is about 4, but in counties like Mandera and Wajir, it's as high as 7.5.
2 minutes.
And so what will be very critical is that we need to make sure that the employment and the total fertility rates of this country needs to be reduced. And finally, it's about equity. Without equity, we will continue to have pockets of what we would term as violent extremism. We will have pockets of distress. We will have pockets of places which feel left out or marginalized. So the growth has to be all inclusive. And as the message of the SDGs go, we have to leave nobody behind. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, the SDGs are amongst the most ambitious. Kenya did well on the MDGs, but still on MDG 4 and 5, there is unfinished business. The rate of maternal mortality, the rate of child mortality continues to be very, very high. Adolescent HIV/AIDS is on the increase in Kenya, while in other parts it started to reduce. These are things we need to collectively look at, and particularly at the micro level where it comes to the county governments. I talked about the financing mechanism, but you have an important and resolute partner with you, ladies and gentlemen, and which is the United Nations country team in Kenya. Kenya is perhaps one of the few countries in the world where the government, the head of state, the key cabinet ministers, the county governments and the UN system have come together in framing the United Nations Development Assistance Framework. It is actually being seen today as a model elsewhere. And the key aspects of the UNDAF, or the United Nations Development Assistance Framework, is transformative governance. It's human capital development. It's inclusive and sustainable economic growth. It's economic sustainability, land management, and human security. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just want to end on one important note. As I said, the window of the demographic dividend is about 20 to 25 years. This is the moment. In the next 5-6 years, these are the kinds of investments on education, on skills, on empowerment, on employment, on equity have to be made. By 2050, when Kenya's population is at 85 million, the choice Kenya has is, because by then, the average age of a Kenyan will be about 58, is either to get rich before it gets old, or to get old before it grows rich. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. I also want to introduce